freezing. I think it was probably the longest night of my life. To read more about the sleepover, check out Diary of a Wimpy Kid, The Last Straw by Jeff Kinney. Explore new worlds and check out more cool books at your local library. And visit read.gov. Brought to you by the Library of Congress and the Ad Council.
The Talk of Muskegon. News Talk 1090, WKBZ.
Welcome. You're listening to the Renegade River Show, and my name is Mike Hewitt. And as usual, before we get going with the show, this time I've got a really brief quote to offer. It's a Samuel Adams quote, one of my favorite founding fathers. If virtue and knowledge are diffused among the people, they will never be enslaved. This will be their great security. So once again, I'm calling on our founding fathers to help us with education, which I personally believe to be our greatest area of opportunity. Listen, folks, I'm very, very excited to have a special guest on the line with us today. On the line is Michigan Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. Secretary Johnson, welcome to our show.
It's great to be here, Mike. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Listen, I've got a big laundry list of stuff I want to try to learn.
Okay.
I got to tell you candidly, I didn't know there was so much to talk about until I started preparing for the show. I went, wow, you've got a lot on your plate.
I do, and we're having a great time doing it. I just can't tell you enough about my staff. That's positive, and everybody's in it not for anything more than doing what's best for the people of the state of Michigan, and it is fabulous.
I can tell you this, I talk to a fair number of people when I'm arranging guests for the shows, and so my contact with the Secretary of State's office is kind of twofold. First off, when I buy my own driver's license, and then aside from that, in setting up this show, I've talked to a couple of your people, and they truly, truly did a great job for you. So I think you and I both share a common respect for what you've got going there with your staff.
I'm very fortunate, I'll tell you.
No question. Hey, I've got a list. Let me slide down it if I might, starting with one of my what's that, number one on my list. Tell me about your Veterans Initiative. What does that mean, and what's it about?
Sure. Something very near and dear to my heart, our veterans. I can't think of any group that's more deserving of both the benefits that they've earned and to make sure that they can vote. So I was very honored that this last fall in September I was asked to go to the Middle East to meet with service people, and we went to 3 different countries, 5 different installations, and a couple ships. And I got to talk to many, many people serving this country that are from Michigan. And it was an honor and a privilege to meet with them and speak with them. But I did find out that we need to do better nationally this way to make sure that they have an opportunity to vote. We also know that Michigan, and I'm very proud to say this, is the 11th highest in the nation for people that have served. But we're the worst in the nation for people that know about and take advantage of what they've earned, such things as veterans benefits for loans, education, medical. So we've partnered with the veterans groups and the governor so that we'll get that information out in our 131 branch offices. We have a new fundraising plate to benefit Michigan veterans. And we were able to work with the legislature and the governor, and starting this month we have a new commercial driver's license law. We call it CDL. We cut the red tape, basically. If you go into the Army, Navy, Marines, or any other armed forces and you drive a big truck, and it likely has things on it that are have to be carried very, very carefully. When you come home, until this month, you would have to go through the same education, take the time and the money to do it, and we want to make sure that our veterans, when they come home, if they're already trained, they can cut the red tape and go right to work. So that starts this month.
Very, very nice. I got to tell you, when I read a little bit about that, I was a little bit surprised, because when I first think of a state Secretary of State's office, I hadn't connected the needs with veterans until I started reading into it, and frankly, I'm pretty darn impressed. You're doing a great job in that area.
Well, thank you. We did come out with a bipartisan report, what we think should be done. There were three Republicans and 2 Democrats. One of the Democrats couldn't attend at the very last minute. So it was bipartisan, and we did come out with a report, and it does have many ideas that the federal government could use to make sure that our men and women that are serving this country, putting their lives on the line every day for us, that they would have an easier time of voting. So we're hoping that the federal government will take a look at that and make some of those changes.
I applaud the effort. I genuinely do. So Tell me, along that same path, I see that, well, at least from the outside looking in, it looks like your office is embracing new technologies to try to make the process a little bit more efficient and certainly easier for the citizens. Can you tell me a little bit about the new technologies initiative you've got going?
Yes, and they're continuing because technology just expands every month. There's something new, but we know that it's difficult for people with their busy schedules to get in the car, drive to a Secretary of State's office, and wait in line. So we wanted to come up with a way that would make everything easier for them. It's called ExpressSOS.com. They can go on any computer and just type in ExpressSOS.com, and you can get almost everything that you come to our office for. You can even get your driver's license on the 4th year. On the 8th year renewal, then you will have to come in for a new photo. But you can get your tabs for your license right up till midnight on your birthday, even afterwards, as long as you're not driving your car. Just carry the receipt and you're legal. You can renew your driver's license on the 4th, not the 8th year. You can change your address. And one of the things we changed was with the system, when you change your address on your driver's license, your voter registration automatically changes. And that's so important because about 700,000 people move within the state of Michigan every year, which I found astounding. But their voter registration cards weren't changed, and they'd go to vote and find out they can't. And we have over 5,000 ballot files, the second largest in the country. So you can't vote in Traverse City for how you would vote in Muskegon because you could have completely different ballots. So now we change those so people don't get caught, those 700,000 people not being able to vote. You can renew your state ID, replace your state ID, even replace registrations for your cars or titles and your watercraft. The weather's starting to look a little nice out there, so go online to get your watercraft license, or you can join our organ donor registry, which is very, very important to think about if you haven't.
But tell me a couple things before I move on to, if I can hold you back for just a minute. I'm reading a couple notes here. 2.7 million transactions since the Express SOS was launched in, what was that, late 2011, I think?
Yes, October of 11.
Yeah, and for those listeners that are not, of course, I can't even begin to think about what it is to do a transaction from the Secretary of State side, but I can tell you at Renegade River, my little shop, to do 8 or 9 transactions is a challenge. So when I start seeing numbers of 2.7 million, that's just a huge number of transactions.
And that's 2.7 million people that didn't have to wait in line, which we really appreciate. We're down 20% economically from 10 years ago. We're down 25% staff because of these times, and we try to run just as lean as we can. And the only way we can do that is if people take advantage of ExpressSOS.com, because not only do they help themselves, they help our staff a lot because they're populating the fields. They're filling in the data rather than having a staff member. And that saves us about 50% time for our staff, or 50% of staff to do that data entry. So every time somebody uses ExpressSOS.com, it helps us, it helps them. It's quicker, easier, faster, simpler, and it just is a breeze to use. It's very simple.
How I'm trying to, you're talking about employees and the numbers of employees that you're down, but just to give listeners an idea, how many just approximately employees are part of the Secretary of State?
We have employees that are at our branch offices that everybody sees. We have a secondary complex in Lansing that does the work once they get the data, and we have elections. We have about 1,480 staff members. We bring in $2.2 billion, that's with a B, $1 billion. And we take about 8.6 of that to operate our office. The vast majority goes to roads and schools.
Wow, very, very. Those are some big numbers.
They're huge. 2.2 billion with a B. That's just an incredible number, isn't it? And the staff does a great job. We have over 7 million voters in Michigan, and we are trying to clean up our qualified voter file. In 2008, the Pew Center on the State said that Michigan had 102.54% of the eligible electorate registered to vote, which is a huge problem. You must have a good, clean voter file if you're going to make sure you have integrity in your elections. So we've joined with 21 other states, the Kansas Project, and preliminary reports show over 300,000 people registered in both Michigan and one other state, and we have seen a couple incidences of people voting twice. So Candace Miller, Congressman Miller, the past Secretary of State, she's helping us with legislation right now. through the federal level to say you can only be registered in one state. I think would be a great law.
I absolutely applaud it. Tell me, I'm still reading my chicken scratch here from my notes. I've had I was born with a heart defect, Ruth, and so over the years I've wrestled with a handful of heart surgeries and some other things. And in the back of my mind, and probably my immediate family's mind, was always the topic of organ donation. And frankly, at 52 years old, I'm not a candidate for that. You're
just a baby.
Yeah, God bless you, Ruth. But from my position, of course, organ donation has been a consideration in the past as I was growing up. So it leads me, and I tell you that just so you understand, it's kind of a personal passion of mine. Sure. that folks consider doing that rather than the alternative, which is just such a waste. But tell me a little bit about the Secretary of State's involvement with organ donation.
When we came into office 2 years and a couple months ago, we found Michigan sixth from the bottom in the country for people signing up to be on the organ donor registry. And what we quickly learned from talking to people is that a lot of people didn't know that they had that opportunity, how easy it was. So we asked our staff to ask when people come in. We put together a committee from all over the state of stakeholders, whether they be the surgeons or families that have made a very courageous decision when a loved one's died. And you can save the lives of up to 8 people and increase the quality of life to 50 more people when you sign up on the organ donor registry. We had recipients there, and I told them, I'm broke, but tell me how I can help. And boy, they came up with 2 pages of ideas, and we put it on our commonly used electronic media. We put it on our commonly used forums. We ask. We've done many, many things. We've joined in many different events that highlight organ donor registry. And I'm very proud to say when Michiganians are asked, they'll do it. They're very generous. We had our best 2 years in the history of Michigan. We had over 1 million people sign up in 2 years. We're not stopping there. That's a good start, a really good start, because we know 3,000 people are on the waiting list. People die waiting on that list. That's babies, children, teenagers, moms, dads, grandparents, simply because people haven't signed up, and it's often because they don't know about it. So we're encouraging people, take a look at it. It's free. You can do it online. You can come into one of our branch offices, and we can get you signed up. Or you can go through Gift of Life to do it. And we've partnered with Gift of Life and the Michigan Eye Bank, and we found it very, very helpful to be a team together. And we're out there encouraging people. And of course, the people that have lost loved ones or have benefited from organ donation, they have put forth so much energy in this push to get more people to know that they can sign up, and that's made a big difference too. It's really been a joy of the job, and I'll tell you, the staff works really hard at our branch offices, and I was afraid I might be asking them to do too much. But there was a secondary gain I never thought of, and that is it has increased morale so much because they like being part of something that's so important.
Absolutely. Tell me, just if I'm a listener driving down the road right now, you mentioned I can go online. And I don't want to put you on the spot with a web address, but how might a listener? What's the easiest path to finding out about the donation program?
Yes, go on expressos.com. That's easy. That's where you can get your license plate tabs and your boat license, replace a title, any of those things that you come into our office for. You can do online, except for you'll have to come in for a few specialty items and your license every 8 years now. But you can also sign up on the organ donor registry there, and it will ask for the data, and then we'll mail you a little red heart on a piece of tape and tell you where to put it on your driver's license, and then you'll be in the file as organ donor, being on the organ donor registry. And one of the questions I get asked sometimes is, how old do you have to be? Well, I came to my mom and said to her, maybe you should think about doing this. It's become a great passion. And she said, oh, there isn't anything I got anybody would want. But the truth is, our oldest donors were 101 and 103. And even kids can do it, but they would have to get permission. There would have to be permission from their parents at the time of a tragedy. So anybody can sign up.
Now, so just so I get the other side of this connection, local hospitals must be plugged into this, or how do if I were a person in a hospital or a doctor, how do they come in contact with your donor list so they can match up patients with parts, for lack of better words?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because matching is a very important issue here. And Gift of Life does a great job. I've worked with them since I came on board, and they are fabulous. They keep all the data. They have all the information, and they're the third party. And one of the other questions I get asked is, maybe because I'm not high up in the societal ladder, is somebody going to push me aside and not help me? That's just not true. It's completely separate, and so people don't have to worry about this. It is done in a way that no one can be hurt because of it, because of joining.
Okay, that's extremely important to know, and I have to tell you on that point, in the years that I've had the conversation about my own self, was the question of what's the pecking order to get donated parts. So it's very nice to hear you articulate that way.
Done very fairly, too, not based on anything but who's in need the most. And therein lies one of the problems why we have people that pass away on this waiting list, because we just don't have enough people on the list yet. But we're going to keep working on it, because you're right, it is, as long as somebody doesn't mind doing it, it's a fabulous thing, because it isn't going to help them where they're going. It really will help somebody. And when you talk to these people that have received some kind of a transplant, they really make the most of it. They know they've gotten a second chance at life, and they do some of the most fabulous things, because they feel like it's now become almost a calling that they've been able to get this second chance. I've met a little boy named Tommy. I asked him for his autograph. He was so funny. He knows every baseball player that there is. I think Tommy's 12 now, and he got a heart transplant, and it absolutely saved his life. And he's the most gregarious, outgoing little young man you've ever met, and it just makes my day to see somebody like that takes advantage every day of his second chance, even at such a young age.
Very, very cool. How long, Ruth, has it been since he received the transplant?
Well, I can't remember for sure. It's been a few years.
So he's got some survival time since the transplant's what I'm getting at.
Oh, yes. My guess is that he'll live for a very long time. He may need yet another heart transplant someday, and we are getting better and better at any kind of medical technology is growing in leaps and bounds now. And his mother was just a delight. And, she's been through a lot when you think about it, his mom and dad, but she brings them to many of the different functions so people can see how much they help somebody and how important it is. And he signed his name for me on a picture, and he made his S and his last name wrong. He crossed it out and wrote the rest of it. And I teased him, and he knows every batting average of every major league player in the United States. He knows their weight, their size, any kind of statistical information. And I said, well, I'd like you on my team if we ever play Trivial Pursuit. So before I left, he goes, hey, when are we playing Trivial Pursuit?
Yeah, he sounds like a true blessing for that. Ruth, we've got to slip to a break, but I'm hoping you'll stay over because I've still got a fairly good number of things on my list for you.
Sure, Mike. I'd be happy to.
Very nice. Thank you very much. We'll be back, everybody.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Let me tell you how it will be.
Renegade River in Spring Lake wants to buy your used handguns and hunting guns. Renegade River, your hunting, camping, and survival store. Stop in and check out their new and used firearms, sporting goods, Army and Navy supplies, and survival gear. Downtown Spring Lake, next to the police station.
The funny thing about credit is that you never think about it until you need it. And that's not the time to discover that you've been the victim of identity theft, or that someone has opened accounts under your good name and left you holding the bag. It's happening to millions of people every year, but you don't have to be one of them. That's why I want you to know about Credit Karma. Credit Karma is a free website. You can get your credit score for free in just 2 minutes. Why pay for identity theft protection when Credit Karma provides you with free credit monitoring? Why pay for all of this when it's absolutely free at creditkarma.com? And Credit Karma's security level's on par with America's biggest banks, so you know it's super safe and it's super free. I love Credit Karma, and so will you. There's no trial subscription, and they never ask you for your credit card. I signed up, and I had my credit score in under 2 minutes for free, and I recommend that you sign up right now, too. That's creditkarma.com, CreditKarma.com.
Hi, everyone. Jay Farner here with Quicken Loans. Today's mortgage rates are just about the lowest that we've ever experienced. But because these super low rates fluctuate, Quicken Loans has a great new way for you to find out what the current mortgage rate is for a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage right this instant. Just pick up your mobile phone and text the word RATES to AMAZE. Text RATES to 26293 to see the latest mortgage rate on a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage. Again, simply text RATES to AMAZE. That's RATES to 26293. At Quicken Loans, we always provide you with the latest technology designed to give you an amazing mortgage experience. Maybe that's why for 3 years in a row now, J.D. Power & Associates has ranked Quicken Loans highest in the nation in customer satisfaction for primary mortgage origination. Again, text RATES to AMAZE 26293 and discover for yourself why Quicken Loans is engineered to amaze.
Standard text messaging rates apply. For J.D. Power & Associates award information, visit jdpower.com. Equal housing lender. Licensed in all 50 states. NMLS number 3030.
Be a survivor, not a statistic. Renegade River in Spring Lake has new and used handguns, hunting guns, sporting goods, and survival gear. Protect your rights and your freedom. Ask about their CPL classes. Renegade River, next to the police station in downtown Spring Lake.
News Talk 1090 is the talk of Muskegon.
1, 2. Let me tell you how it will be. There's one for you, 19 for me.
Welcome back. You're listening to Mike Hewitt on the Renegade River Show, and today we're on with Michigan Secretary of State Ruth Johnson. Welcome back, Ruth.
Good to be back.
Hey, when we left off, we were talking about organ donations, and I've still got a couple things on my little list here about that topic, if I might, before we move on. One of the things that we were talking about during the break, everybody, is take me as an example. I was born with a congenital heart disorder. Now, that said, the question becomes is if I wanted to be an organ donor, can I leave my kidneys? Can I leave my lungs? Those kind of things. How does that work, Ruth?
Yeah, sure. Just like anybody else, they probably wouldn't choose then your heart to use for someone else, but tissues, eyes, kidneys, lungs, all kinds. I mean, one person that signs up can save the lives of 8 people and increase the quality of life for 50 more people.
I got to tell you, too, even with my heart, I've had some personal wrestle with this, and so for the listeners, if you've sat and debated, do you want to, or can you emotionally deal with it and all of that? Even with my heart, Ruth, I've had 3 open heart surgeries, and so it occurs to me that maybe schools that teach medicine, that are teaching young cardiologists, would love to have a look and see what the good and the bad was of the surgeries I've had.
Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, I mean, so I add that because I think there's a value to everything. And so for listeners, if you're thinking about it, please don't underestimate the value that your body can bring others in that situation. It's the ultimate example of making lemonade out of lemons. Next, what I wanted to do, if we could, Ruth, is segue a little bit towards this immigration issue that kind of was all over the place last year in 2012 in the media, and I see it still percolating a little bit. Immigration as it pertains to voting. Can you bring us up to speed and tell us what it is we're hearing about?
Sure, there's a few things. One is the president made a 180 on the people that came here undocumented, illegal as children, and he said they now have legal status for 2 years. That doesn't mean they can vote, but under Michigan law, if they're here legally, then they have a right to a driver's license, which they have to go through a process with the federal government to prove that. And so we had been working on a plan since I took office to make the driver's licenses of people that are here that are not citizens and can't vote legally different. And so we have done that. And so when the president made a 180, we have in place this month a new system that will actually write limited term, or LT, on the driver's license, and their driver's license ends the day that their visa ends. So no illegal immigrants get driver's license in Michigan by law. However, if people are here and they're here legally, we now will stamp the date of their last day of their visa so they can't overstay their visa.
Very, very nice. Tell me, I've been only looking at this from a cursory angle, but it appeared from the outside of it that Governor Snyder was not on the same path that you were on it. Did I misread that? Were you? Where is he at on it? I guess
sure.
Is how I should ask it.
He has been supportive of that. I worked with him on it. We had our SAFE initiative, our Secure and Fair Elections. We worked with him, and in late December, because of other things in the media, they didn't really report very much about our citizen affirmation, which now when you sign a ballot request form, you have to sign your name and attest that you are a U.S. citizen. Already you had to put your name, your address, and your birth date so we could see who you were, if you're in the right precinct for voting, and your birth date to make sure you were 18. Now we added on citizenship. The reason for that is for 34 years, the staff in the Secretary of State's office were required by the federal government, which I think is certainly the 10th Amendment abused, by saying you must ask everyone if they wanted to register to vote. I think it was good intention. They should have asked each state how they would like to make sure everyone's asked that's a citizen, but they didn't. And for 34 years, our staff didn't like it, but they asked everyone if they wanted to register to vote. Many people voted that were not citizens. We had a list that we sent through the federal government through Homeland Security asking them if they were citizens or not. They sent back, out of 58,000 that we sent them, 963 that weren't. That's a very small sample of what we had. So we wanted to send those folks a letter and tell them, if you have become a citizen recently, please vote. It's your right. And I believe an obligation for each of us to vote that live in this great country. But if you're not a citizen and you vote, it's a felony, and, there will be consequences for it. But the federal government won't even allow me to use the 963, much less help me with the rest of them. They have denied the right for the information to be used to be able to take off non-citizens. And let me tell you, not only is the integrity of our elections at risk, because many elections are won or lost by a handful of votes, but these people that don't know, which is the vast majority, there's some that know, but the vast majority don't know they're not supposed to vote because they were asked if they wanted to, and they are sent a voter registration card every 10 years, just like they were last year, with their name, address on it, and where they're supposed to vote. But they could be deported because they voted, because it is a felony, and the law says if you commit a felony, you can never become a U.S. citizen, and you may be deported. So they hurt those people that have come here legally and doing the right thing. And what's so important to me is the integrity of our elections. So we do have the citizen affirmation now. You'll see it the next time you vote. It'll be the first time. We've extended the military voting deadline. If the clerks don't get the information out in a timely manner, we want to make sure everyone that's serving in the military gets a chance to vote. We've closed the photo ID loopholes for absentee voters. We have a bill that's passed its legislation that fights ballot coaching at nursing homes. We are now doing, for the first time, post-election audits. We got the law through the legislature. Hats off to this legislature that was able to get this through, because there's no lobbyists pushing for any of these laws. These are just plain good public policy. And cleaning up the voter rolls, we also signed a subscription with the federal government for dead people off Social Security, and we found 50,000 dead people on our rolls. And so we've gone about systematically checking each one, and we've checked 30,000 and got them off. We've got 20,000 more to go. And we've also gotten tougher campaign finance laws in, which gets really cracks down on our worst offenders. It makes it a felony, which then the prosecutor will go after. We're requiring more reporting. Do you remember the fake Tea Party?
I do, absolutely. That's on my list. I chaired a Tea Party during that in West Michigan, and so certainly those folks were on our radar, right smack in the middle of it. Well,
they can't do it more, because now they'll have to report more, so we'll know. They can't say, oh, this is the Tea Party. It was really a group of people that were very liberal, that wanted to fool people. It was a deception game plan rather than something that was like, here's what I stand for, here's what they stand for, you pick what's best. It was pure deception. They figured they could get at least 4% of the people to vote that would normally vote for somebody conservative that really respected the Constitution, just by trickery. So we've taken care of that. That all came apart in Oakland County when I was the clerk, when somebody didn't want to pay their late fee because they'd never registered to run for office. It was completely fraudulent. They'd forged someone's name.
And then I'm sorry. I was going to interject, if I might, is that when I was reading up on the immigration voting issue, it seemed like the opposing view, the other side of this coin, if you will, was pushing back pretty hard with the mantra that suggested that you can't point to only a handful of incidences where this was a problem. And what I found so ironic about that was they were pushing really hard and spending a lot of money. And I thought, wait a minute, if it's really not an issue and there really aren't any substantial numbers of cases, why are they spending so much money in a campaign against it?
Oh, exactly, Mike. And the other problem is I have a list of only 963 out of 58,000. There's many, many more out there. They won't give me the information. I've been limited to 58,000 to look at, and I found 963. And the audacity to say that's not very many, even if it was the whole voter rolls, I would disagree with them. But the fact that they've limited me to such a small amount of information and then, chide that you shouldn't worry about such a few people, I can't tell you how many non-citizens are registered because they won't let me even use my own data, much less help me with the rest of the data. It's so frustrating. And then you get a large media outlet that doesn't look into it, and they deny and minimize rather than look at the real problem here. It's such a problem that the National Association of Secretary of States, bipartisan, has got a resolution that says this is a problem and has asked the federal government to help each of us to be able to take care of it. And by the way, that was voted bipartisan. There was only one no vote on it when it went through the committee process. So it is a problem. It's a